Greece was rocked yesterday by a nationwide strike of millions of workers and hours of rioting and street protests against the government's austerity plans. In response, embattled Greek Prime Minister George Papandreou announced in an address to the nation he'll reshuffle his cabinet today to try to alleviate the country's crippling debt crisis.
I will continue on the same road, the road of duty, together with the POSEC parliamentary group, its members, and the Greek people. Tomorrow, I will form a new government, and immediately after I will ask for a vote of confidence from Parliament. It is time for responsibility.
The new austerity package for Greece includes €6.5 billion in tax hikes. That's $9.4 billion and doubles measures agreed to with bailout lenders that have pushed unemployment to a record 16.2% and extended a deep recession into its third year. Some protesters expressed skepticism at the Prime Minister's initiative.
A cabinet reshuffle? With what? The same ministers? I remember our grandfathers used to do that. It's the same people every time. It's different meals, but they're cooked in the same pot.
For the past 3 weeks, protesters have camped out in Athens' main square facing Parliament, calling on the government to withdraw its plans. For more, we go to Athens, where we're joined on the phone by Hara Kouki. She is a doctoral student who's been writing on the protests for The Guardian and other publications. And here in New York, we're joined by Costas Panayotakis, associate professor of sociology at New York City College of Technology. His book, Remaking Scarcity from Capitalist Inefficiency to Economic Democracy, will be published in September. Hara, let's go to you first. In Athens, what is happening there now?
Hi, good morning. What I can say is what happened yesterday and describe a bit what's happening at the square, because it's quite astonishing and surprising even for us. Because, it has been quite a usual thing to have protests and demonstrations in Greece, but what's happening the last 3 weeks is that, on a daily basis, there are thousands of people who gather in the central square of Athens. And they come from all political parties, but at the same time from non-political parties, because it's a very anti-politic thing. And there are people who gather there and daily they have assemblies talking about everything. And what is clear for all those people is that they have no clue of what's going to go on and what they want to happen. But what they all share, what we all know there, is that this thing cannot go on. So it's really not against the government. It's against what has been happening for the last 30 years and that has led the country into this situation. So that's mainly what's going on at the streets and at the Syntagma Square. And I have to say that there are people from all ages and all political stands. You can see mothers, you can see doctors, you can see students, you can see people of 50, 30 or 70 years old going there and trying to hear what other people say and trying to get heard in another way of this that has been happening until now.
Costas, can you explain the significance of Papandreou not being able to form this national unity government, of him saying he will reshuffle his cabinet, and what this means outside of Greece?
Yeah, I think that Papandreou has lost the confidence of Greek citizens, and he's losing the confidence of his own party, the members of the parliament, the trade unions that were allied with the Socialist Party. And it's pretty clear that he didn't feel confident that he could pass this austerity package through the parliament. So he turned to the Conservative Party to try to create a coalition government, and he was rebuffed, although the Conservative Party seemed to be willing to discuss it for a while. So there is an element of political theater, because the Conservative Party sort of is posturing as being against these austerity packages to some extent, but it's clear that both of these parties are sort of on board, and that the result has been that the entire political system has been delegitimized, and this is something that is shown by polls. And I think this is the result of a festering European crisis, because what we've had is that the dominant strategy within Europe has been to protect European banks on the backs of people in the European periphery, like Greece and Portugal, Spain, Ireland, and also at the expense of taxpayers in Northern European countries who finance these bailouts that do nothing to solve the problem and that only make life miserable for people in countries like Greece because of all the conditionalities and the cutbacks and the austerity that they entail.
What does it mean to say he is a socialist, Papandreou? Where did that philosophy and politics come out in the solutions that he has been trying to push through?
Well, I think this is part of the problem. I mean, he ran in 2009, he ran on an anti-austerity campaign, making the obvious point that every economist knows since Keynes, that when you have a deep economic crisis, austerity is the wrong way to go, because it will make the crisis even worse. And this is why he has such problems with his party, because many in his party feel that what he's doing is so far away from the principles of the party that he's having a problem. So, I mean, of course, the irony is he's the president of the Socialist International as well. He's not just so. His argument would be that you know, he doesn't have any choice. That basically, otherwise, the country is, you know, going to go bankrupt. But his critics would suggest that he didn't really bargain with the interests of ordinary Greeks in mind, and he's just going along with what the European Union and the IMF want him to do.
And the influence of the massive Spanish protests throughout Spain and primarily in Madrid on Greece and the protests there.
Yeah, the Greek protesters call themselves aganaktismeni, which means indignant, and it's it follows up on the movement of indignados in Spain. There were even apocryphal stories that there were banners in Spain that said, you know, be quiet, the Greeks are sleeping. So many Greeks took that there was as a sort of challenge, and they sort of figured that they would rise to the challenge following the same social media, Facebook, and so on and so forth. So I think there are sort of similarities there. In Greece, I don't think it's, as Hara was saying, it's not just young people, and it was probably not in Spain either, but I mean, it's amazing that the movement in Greece, how you have people who are from all walks of life and all backgrounds, and it's not the usual suspects that were more likely to be found in the protests last year, where you had mainly unions and left-wing parties and so on. So I think the program has really been hurting people in a very sort of severe way, and it is becoming clear to everybody that this program is not working. The predictions of the government, the predictions of the IMF have not been materializing, so people are saying enough is enough.
Hara, the level of the protest and the police response to that protest.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to say that I agree with how Costas looks at the situation, but my point of view is different because I've been living here, so it's more like emotional or personal experience. So what can I say is that, as I said before, the thing that the protests and demonstrations have not been, they were not just people, the usual people that have been participating until now, but there are people that have never been in the streets before. So those people during the last 3 weeks have been massively into the streets. So we had, like, for the last 3 weeks, like half a million of people gathered in the square. And we would not expect police brutality because of that. But what happened yesterday is that there was extreme police brutality. There was mass tear gas thrown at the people. There were people, crushed into each other, crying that could not see. So I don't really, in my personal view, I'm not representing anyone. What happened is that we understood that, the political elites or representatives are quite in a chaos, at a loss, because they cannot really control what is happening. Because obviously, by brutality or violence, you cannot control these things. And what happens is that you create more hostile feelings, on behalf of the people, that you cannot control the situation, you just treat them violently as that. So what I wanted to say, another thing I wanted to add is that yesterday at the demonstration I just said 500,000 people in the streets in Athens. When rumors were spread that the Prime Minister was discussing reform of the government or a new coalition of government, well, what people said, and what all people said is that we don't really care about that. I mean, everybody knows that even if the government changes or there is a new head of government, this is not going to change the way things are run and the way things are going to be done in the next few months. So even if that happens, the problem at issue is not going to be solved. We all know that what is happening on the streets at this moment is not going to be solved with a new coalition government. So that's something that it's totally, it's totally common sense for everybody here. Maybe it's not really shown in the media, but that's something I can say that's obvious for all of us. That something most radical must happen in order to change the way things go.
Costas, from our headlines a year ago, the New York Times reporting Wall Street tactics akin to the ones that fostered subprime mortgages in America have worsened the European financial crisis by enabling governments to hide their mounting debts. One deal created by Goldman Sachs helped Greece obscure billions in debt from the budget overseers in Brussels. Goldman Sachs is said to be the most important of more than a dozen banks used by the Greek government to manage its national debt using derivatives. Can you comment?
Yeah, I think what we have, I was talking about how it is a European crisis, but it is really a global crisis. And what the current crisis has shown is basically the incompetence, but also the cravenness of the political and economic elites that are running the world. And that basically this is the problem we are faced with. And basically ordinary citizens in Greece, in Europe, in the United States are now being called upon to pay for the sins of, of banks and politicians who failed to regulate them. And in this sense, there are lots of parallels in the kind of rhetoric that is used in Greece to justify austerity and the rhetoric that is used in the United States or the state of New York and so on and so forth, the same kind of patterns of attacking, for example, public sector workers and saying they're privileged and they are the cause of the problems. So there is like a sort of global class war going on, and there are lots of themes are similar. And so I think there is a pattern there.
Hara, what do you see happening right now? I mean, could the government collapse today?
Well, what is happening now is that you don't really know what's going to happen. I mean, you have this feeling that you wake up in the morning and you don't know. I mean, maybe the government has collapsed, or maybe there is a new state of things going on. It's totally unpredictable what's going to happen. What you know now, and you didn't know like 2 months before, is that now what you do you are not closed in your own space, private space anymore. So you have gone in the streets and you have met other people speaking. So what we know now is that we do, and what we say can have an impact on a political level, because as Costa said, you have been used to be a guilt of what's happening, and that you bear the responsibility as a private citizen, as an individual. But now, I don't know what's going to happen, but the thing is that people at this level, at political level, cannot ignore the way people feel and how they're facing their problems. So I'm not going to say that I'm optimistic, because maybe the government changes and that's not equated with an optimistic feeling. But I'm optimistic on this perspective that, people's voices are heard, and not only in Greece, but also in Spain or in Portugal or in the United States. So that's what I think that it's happening at this moment. I don't know what's going to happen next, if you ask me now.
And who is, Costas, the Conservative Party of Greece, and what will this mean?
Well, the leader is called Adonis Samaras, and he's playing a sort of a kind of strange game where he supports many of the specific neoliberal free market policies and privatization and so on and so forth that the government is trying to push through. But on the other hand, he sort of realizes that these policies are very unpopular, they're not working well, so he tries to present himself as being also critical of it. And one of the things one of the conditions he set for a coalition government yesterday was that a coalition government would be temporary and it would try to renegotiate the terms of the austerity package. But I basically agree with Hara that, you know, a coalition government would not solve the problem.
Well, I want to thank you both for being with us. Costas Panayotakis, professor at CUNY, City University of New York. His book, Remaking Scarcity from Capitalist Inefficiency to Economic Democracy, will be published in September. And Hara Kouki, thank you so much for being with us in Athens, Greece, has been writing about the protests for The Guardian and other